All right, it's been a minute since I've done one of these. See if I can remember how to make a video. All right, so we got some letters here for OR builders. It's going to be non-illuminated, sort of a mixture of reverse channel letters with flat cutouts, acrylic and whatnot, but kind of a stacked system. So nothing too crazy, kind of a remix of all kinds of stuff we've done already. Like Puffy say, we own the remix, but we just want to make sure everything gets done in a proper order and looks really good. So I'm just going to go over a few things here to make sure it all gets done kind of in order and we don't catch ourselves out on anything. So let's get after it. We got the lay of the land here. So the topper is like the main, like the furthest out, the top. This is gonna be kind of the decorative front part, calling that the topper. That's all 09. Look for outside reference kisses. We got the sort of the main face. This is the main kind of structure. Keeping out for the slidey pucks. Again, this is gonna be sort of Eagle Mountain, kind of slide down on some pucks kind of thing. Look out for that. We've got some inside reference kisses there. And then you got the main backer. This goes up against the tilt up concrete. You'll be able to blue screw this in for install. And this is kind of what it's going to hang off of, the whole system. And again, you're going to look for these slidey pucks, but these go with the backer, not to be confused with the other slidey pucks. So, and then there's a decorative bar. It needed to be structural. It needed to be aluminum. We couldn't have routed it out of anything. So it needs to. So we're going to show you how to fabricate that. Got the slidey pucks, 3/8 aluminum. They're going to be machined down. Look for those. Got 14. The building's going to be kind of painted. So we got some white 063. Look for that. That gets to first shop for Gerber mask or paint, whatever. We got brass inserts. We got 1-inch clear acrylic. Look for all this going on here. Got the little guys there. Don't miss a little dot. We've got the little tildes above the eyes and all that. So don't lose those. And there's your patterns. Okay, so again, like I say, it's not too crazy. We just got to make sure everything looks good. So you can start out with the pucks. You have a face puck. It'll have an F with the up. And then you'll have the actual slot right there that grabs. These, you just go ahead and rivet those together. And then the backer ones are the circles. So you sort of have the front and then you have the back so you can access the bolt and everything on the back side. So you'll rivet those together and you'll be good to go there. And what you want to do is then weld these. So what you're going to do is make reverse channel letters out of these, but I don't know which the order is because you're going to want to weld these pucks to the face to get, and to the backer. The backer is a non-issue because you have plenty of, you just weld it to there. So the backer one that has the circles, that one goes right here. So that's that. So you're going to, weld that. But this one, you're going to put an 1.5 inch return. So I don't know if after you put the return on, if you have the ability to weld these pucks on because you want to make sure these pucks are welded nice. I'd like to do the verticals rather than the horizontals. That way you will have more attachment. You're passing the weld through the rivets and it's more structural. So I don't know if you want to maybe lay out the reverse first and then maybe weld on your pads, your little pucks there, and then weld the returns on because the pucks are only going to be 3/4 inch tall. So that would allow you to get your gun in here. But you can just make that assessment. I don't know which is better to weld this first or weld the back, the sides. Speaking of returns, the main backer, the bigger one here that has the pucks on it, is going to be 1.5 inch depth. And then the topper, part of the layer, it's going to be basically like a wedding cake. The bigger black one there is going to be to the back. That's going to have 1.5 inches. And then the gold decorative that sits on top of that is going to be 1 inch. So, but on both of these, I know that when you're playing, you can play it a little fast and loose when you're doing regular reverse channel letters because they're just floating above the wall. But because this 1 inch is actually going to sit on top of the face of this, and then this actually is going to sit up close to the wall. I'm asking that you kind of make sure that these are sheared accurately because sometimes our shear can be 1 inch on one end and then 1 1/16 inch over here. And we're not that worried about it, but go ahead and do some test cuts and make sure that 1 inch is truly 1 inch all the way across. That way, when you go ahead and fabricate these and you get these seams butted up against each other, you're not going to have one little chunk riding up higher than the other. If it does turn out that way a little bit, go ahead and flip these on their face, and then just kind of feather and make sure that as you go around the return, that everything's nice and sexy and there's nothing that's kind of like one's taller than the other. And then it won't allow this to actually sit nice on the face. So that's the whole idea. And then on this one with the 1.5" return, this one's going to slide down on top of this one, and only the 090 backer, that's going to be the only kind of play that we have. So anything over 1.5 inches, if it's a little deeper than that, it could scrape the paint on the wall or it could be difficult to get on. So again, make sure that you're at 1.5 inches, because this whole thing is all about clearances. So 1.5 inches is our max. So even if it's inch and a little bit less than a half, as long as it's consistent all the way around, we're okay. On the 1 inch, again, it has to be 1 inch, keep it right there. So again, just make sure these strips are cut accurately. So you're going to take your 1.5 inches and you're just going to work it all the way around just like we normally do. But again, I'll let you figure out whether it's better to weld these on first and then return, or weld the return on and then those. Either way, but you got your clecos, you get it all set up, and then make sure that these are the right way up, so that way you'll catch and slide down. So the system's going to slide down just like Eagle Mountain, the Eagle slid down. So anyway, so we're good to go there. You'll see that when you do the backer, you're going to hand bend these up to 90, and then this is going to be how it gets secured on. So once the system gets slid onto the backer, install can just hit these with self tappers in these 4 spots, and it'll keep this from ever lifting up. Now, what you'll want to do is at these reference points here, you don't need to actually drill this hole, but give them a 3/16 clearance hole here, 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 and here. And that way they can then just shoot straight through and hit this tab with a self tapper. So again, it's not necessary for you to, do a test fit, of course, check it in the shop, make sure everything fits. But it's not really necessary for you to pre-drill this hole like a reverse channel letter. I'm just saying, go ahead and make that hole like a reverse channel letter at that point. Use your little square and make a nice hole that's going to correspond with the center of this tab right here. Install, look out for that. So when you slide this on, you're just going to hit that up. We're done. So once you get this built, once you get the slider pads on here, the pucks and everything's done on that, once you get the pucks welded to this, these guys are kind of done. Then you're going to do the front face. So you're just going to go ahead and do your returns on this one. That's the 1 inch returns on this one. And then once that's all sexy and clean, then you're going to go ahead and lords on the pads. Now, because it's hot in the shop, I suggest getting your buddy system going. This is going to be a 2-man job. Go ahead and assemble. I already brought these in. And again, because clearance is imperative, it has to be 1.5 inch studs. But I've already brought these in, so we're all set. I've already got your pads, everything's set. But because you can see where here we have the 1 inch return of the 1 inch that's going to be sliding onto the 1.5 inch backer piece here. So when this guy slides in, we only have this much room to work with. So it has to be an 1.5 inch stud, can't be any longer. If it's a longer stud, then it's going to interfere with the sliders and it's not going to be able to slide on properly. And if it's any shorter, obviously the hardware won't grab. So we only have this much room right here for hardware. So again, this is all about clearances on this job. It's kind of fiddly. So get these assembled, put the studs in there and get them all lined up on the table. And then it's buddy system. Somebody go ahead and pop lords. Somebody start to squirt. And then the other guy can follow quickly and stick them down. We just want to make sure everything's on there really good. And then once that's done, pretty much good to go. Like I say, this can go right to first shop or whatever, work with paint. They're going to put a Gerber mask on that, but I think this gets painted to look like that city. This right here, this whole thing. And then we can stick that on after. So once these pads are on there and the studs are on there and everything's all done, that's good. Then what I would do is I would do a test fit, make sure everything fits. I tried to make these holes as loose as possible, but we don't want it to move around too much because when you go to do final assembly, you don't want this metal, you don't want the gold scraping the black paint when you go to put it on. So we want to make sure everything's nice and tight, but we also want to make sure you can easily assemble it after paint without scraping anything or anything like that. So double check that you can do that. So, but yeah, once you get this welded up and everything's done there, once you get this lordsed up and welded, once you get this welded, you know, all this part's pretty much done. So like I said, it's not really a difficult job. Just make sure it looks good and just make sure everything's done in a proper order. Okay, so let's talk about the bar. So the bar is going to be sort of fakey because obviously we can't just have this thing sticking out, you know, from here. And the customer is very adamant that it has a rounded look. It's going to have a profile that looks like, where's my cap? Like that. So the customer wants a side view like this off of the building, so it has to be rounded. So obviously we don't really have anything that's extruded like that, so we are going to make that extrusion like this. So let's go over that. So I have a piece of C-channel coming that you're going to bend up, and it's going to be like a cradle that's going to cradle a piece of 1.5 inch tubing perfectly to where the edges will touch here, and the tubing is just going to sit right in there like that. And then once you get that bent, I have plenty of plug welds along the back here. And then you're just going to plug weld along the back and get that tubing to sit in there nice. And then go ahead and put essentially tack welds, but you can put little fillet welds on the side that will get cleaned up and make it look clean. We are not going to burn beads all the way along this. This is 5 feet long. This thing will turn into a banana if you weld the whole thing. There's no need for that. So I would say at the ends here, and then about every 8 inches, just put a nice little tack and a weld, and then we're going to grind that smooth, and then it's just going to be Bondo magic for all of this right here to make this look like one piece. So anyway, but you're going to do the plug welds along the back just right, do all that. Then once you get this tube, also you have a right and a left, like you can see here on the bar. So you have this side's going to be chopped and tuck up against the return of there to make it look like one piece. So it's important that you understand what's up and down, left and right. So once you have the tubing in there, I understand you won't see this, but I have these little notched ends. This is going to be the left-hand side. So you pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side, and you're also going to chop this off. So get this in there, but what you want to do is make sure that your tubing is aligned to the right side as perfectly as you can. I mean, you can always, sand it down, that's fine. But line this side up, and then whatever's over here, you will be chopping off. You're going to be making your own extrusion, basically. That way you don't have to try to hit this angle perfectly while you try to assemble this, because keeping round tubing after you've cut it, keeping it 90 is a pain in the butt, keeping it perpendicular. So I went ahead and just made this long, and you're just going to go ahead and make one long piece and go ahead and weld the whole thing as if, you're going to keep it all. And then go ahead, and once you've got this all welded, step 1, go ahead and weld it up. And then step 1.5 will be clean up all your welds. Make it nice and clean along the bottom, make it clean on the sides. That way it'll sit in the saw like a nice piece of extrusion that you made. Then go ahead and measure. So you're going to cut this thing to size. Now you'll notice you have 3 holes on the back. We're starting with 5/32. So make sure that you see this side with the right, and it's 90 and all that. And then the left side will be the clip side here on that side. And then make sure that you're doing this so the long side, so you're going to do 53 3/4 along the base, the bottom, and then you're going to cut this way. So just always keep in mind, it's got to tuck up against that O right there. So cut it this way, and it's a 25-degree cut, and then this is scrap. So that way you got yourself a nice piece of extrusion. Now remember to go ahead and measure this before you put the end cap on. Otherwise, this will be 090 over too far, and it's not going to seat up against here very well. So once you get this cut, then what you're going to do is take a 17/32, 0.55, and you're just going to drill out those 5/32 holes, and then you're going to do like we do 5/16 riv nut. Get a deep one because you're going to be going through both 090 and you're going to be going through all of this with the riv nut, right? So get the thick boy with 2 C's, put the riv nut in there and clamp it down. So once you get that all done, it's cut, it's all that, riv nut's done, then go ahead and kind of clean that up, and then just go ahead and lords on the end cap. So just get a good blob on there, plenty to lords to, and then just cap it up, clean it up, and then that will be how our extruded sort of looking like, ooh, how they do that. And then just send it out, and it's just going to be Bondo magic. They're just going to have to make sure they get all this cleaned up and make it look really good. So, but that's how we're going to have a nice bar that's not going to be, you know, if we do it out of acrylic, we know that it's going to probably snap off because, you know, you can see my other video about the length of this and how thermal and all that. So, so once you get the bar all done, this is your cut list to start. Just do 60. It'll be a little bit longer than this. Like I say, line up your right, let this go long. Don't worry about it. You're going to be chopping that off. So like I said, nothing too hard. So you make this bar, that's all good. And then install is going to, you know, do that separately. Install, you have 5/16 studs on that bar. The rest of this is blue screws for yourself. So good to go there. So yeah, I got the lords there. Let's see, I think I got everything. So yeah, so like I said, I really encourage you to do pre-fit on all this before it goes out to paint. Make sure I didn't mess up, make sure none of the, you know, there's no issues with holes and fitment. Go ahead and deconflict anything early before paint. We don't want to be grinding on this or scratching it after paint. Like I say, the customer's kind of discerning, wants it to look really, really good. So just take our time, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So otherwise, you know, as usual, hit me up if you have any questions.
Check the technique. Check the technique.